Welcome to a new edition of South Sound Business Report. We have Amazon, we have the ports of Tacoma and Seattle, we have Microsoft, and we have Boeing. And yet throughout Western Washington there are tens of thousands of industrial manufacturing type jobs that have nothing to do with building airliners. Today we will be visiting some machine and fabrication shops which employ our resident neighbors and build good jobs. Stay tuned. Hello, I'm Jeff Rounds. Thanks for joining us on the South Sound Business Report. We're on the industrial waterfront around Commencement Bay in Tacoma. You know, there are thousands of jobs related to international trade, the container ships, the trucking, and all of that. And yet in the same area, there are tens of thousands of jobs related to other industrial purposes, homegrown companies, many of them, who serve customers locally and literally around the world. Jesse Engineering is one such company. They actually make things that end up improving the lives of residents at far-flung locations or right near home. Since 1976, craftsmen and machinists here have been manufacturing things from heavy steel bridges to sophisticated radar antennas, specialized transportation jigs to carry huge machinery to the oil slopes of Alaska. Jeff Gellert has been the president of Jesse Engineering for 15 years, and 15 years before that was the production manager. Tell us about the company. Is this a good time to be in the industrial manufacturing sector?
Well, we think it is, and we're really committed to keeping manufacturing right here in the Tide Flats in the United States. You probably noticed that with our big American flag out front when you drove in, and we're committed to keeping those jobs right here. We are fortunate that we have developed a niche market that's allowed us to thrive through the tough times. We did have a bit of a recession, as the rest of the world did for the last 2 years, but right now we actually have a record backlog.
Okay.
And we have some big jobs on the books going through 2015, which for us is a very long horizon for job shop type manufacturing.
Well, let's talk about the kinds of work that Jesse does. Can you describe when you run into somebody who's never heard of the company, how do you tell them what's done here?
Yeah, that's always the toughest question that I have to answer. It's more like, what don't we do? The short version would be that we are a steel fabricator and designer and builder of machinery. And this can be just about anything. Excuse me. Most everyone has used a product from Jesse Engineering in the past week, but probably hasn't known it. We built a lot of the components of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, as well as equipment that was used to build it.
The new Narrows Bridge.
The new Narrows Bridge.
Right.
We are currently building a lot of the parts of the 520 bridge. Most of the steel parts, things that connect the pontoons and anchor them to the bottom of the lake and so forth, as well as the construction equipment that's used to build the pontoons. Infrastructure and building infrastructure is a big part of our business.
That would be bridges and docks and things like that?
That's right, and we're a waterfront yard, so we ship via barge up and down the West Coast to Hawaii and to Alaska. Ferry terminals are another product type that we've built we've fabricated the steel for virtually all the ferry terminals in Puget Sound and Alaska.
Now this is a homegrown company. Started when, by whom?
This was founded by Darrell Jesse in 1976, and I joined the company in 1983, and at that time took over the production management, so the owner was able to develop more business along the lines of designing and building machinery. We looked to diversify our business, and we hoped by starting a product line that it would level out our workflow quite a bit.
And that product line is what?
That product line is started with just pipe benders, which are used primarily in shipyards and boiler shops around the world, but can be adapted to a number of other uses. For example, building furniture, or the sweeping curve and sunroom extrusions, or gas pipeline bends. So it can be anything that can be bent can be adapted into our machinery.
It could be a pipe of 3 or 4 inches diameter. It could be, what, 30 inches in diameter?
Well, our main range is from 2 inches to 10 inches,
Okay.
Although we can go heavier. Every machine is a custom machine that's designed to a performance specification for a specific customer.
So you're not necessarily in this concept bending pipe for customers. You're manufacturing machine that they take and use in their process of bending the pipes and making it fit. You said shipbuilding, for example.
That's correct. Yeah, in a ship there's thousands of pieces of pipe that need to be bent. We're very cautious that we don't compete with our customers. So we do not bend the pipe here. We produce the machinery that people use to bend the pipe. And
where around the world are your machines?
Well, completely around the world. The biggest market for a number of years was in China. So we believe that every shipyard in China has a Jesse Engineering bender. Every boiler shop in China has a Jesse Engineering bender. Taiwan, India, in Europe, in Egypt. So it's literally shipped around the world, and maybe later today we'll get a chance to see us packaging some equipment that'll go off to Singapore.
So this is an international operation, and yet it's local here in Commencement Bay.
Absolutely. The machinery is, varies from 10 to 25% of our business, but it's an important piece of the business.
Tell me about the workforce. How big is it, and what kinds of people are the employees of Jesse Engineering?
Okay. Well, we have approximately 140 employees here. Most of the employees are hands-on craftsmen who fit pieces together and weld them together and machine them. People who install electrical, pneumatic, hydraulic systems. And there are people who take great pride in their work, and
I would assume that they are long-term employees in many cases.
yes, we believe that the intellectual capital we have is the most important thing that we have here. So we're very proactive in terms of maintaining a steady workforce that's been well trained and is well taken care of, so they want to stay here.
You had mentioned earlier, Jeff, the workflow into the future. Looking back in history, have you been able to not have fluctuations? Have you been able to avoid layoffs of those very valuable employees?
Yes. In the really slow times, we've cut back our hours of work, but typically the problem is we have too much work, so we typically mitigate that with some limited use of overtime.
Okay. And that does keep the workforce in place.
That's correct. And that's key. Really, the steel is just the medium that we're working in. What we're selling is skilled labor, skilled machinists, skilled welders, skilled fitters. That's really what we're selling.
You mentioned that most people who are viewing this program probably have experienced one of your products. That would include pedestrian overpasses. I know that's a fun feature that you've done too.
Oh, you bet. We built the bridge at the Museum of Flight, which I hope you have a chance to see sometime.
Right over Marginal Way, isn't it?
It's over Marginal Way, and as you walk across the bridge, it has a sound system that makes it sound like historic airplanes are flying by you.
Right.
We also did the ones in Bellevue Square.
The Lincoln Square connections to Bell Square?
That's correct.
Those are not just square, straight things. Those are a nice sweeping curve, as I recall.
That's correct. They're an architectural high-end product, and it was a political football to get the proper look for those bridges to meet the city's vision of their future. Here in Tacoma, I would say that the Museum of Glass Hot Shop Cone is a public space that many people know and certainly recognize as a landmark, and we built the structure for that.
Now these are projects that you can't just take a plan book off the shelf and build. These are unique, typically one-off designs, aren't they?
Absolutely. Essentially everything we do is one of a kind, and that's the risk, but it's also the reward in this business. we take great pride in seeing a completed project that's as complex as, say, the hot shop for the Museum of Glass.
Well, thank you for sharing the story of Jesse Engineering. Jeff Gellert.
Okay, thanks.
Up the road a bit in Kent's Industrial Valley is another manufacturing shop with only a slightly smaller tools and projects. Machine and Fabrication LLC is where we find the Business Examiner's Associate Editor Brianne Coates with its CEO.
This is Martin Kerner. Martin, to introduce people to Machine and Fabrication, can you tell us about some of the projects you guys have worked on here?
Well, Bree, one of the projects we're probably most proud of is a job we ended up in China to build a bridge from the mainland to Macau. And it was a very large, the largest job we've ever done, and involved the pile driving equipment that drove some very large piles and created actually an artificial island in the China Sea, which was really exciting.
So you guys do more than one type of job here, though. Tell us about the diversification you've created at this company. So how many things do you guys do here? You don't just make one product or have one service.
We are basically a job shop. So we take on projects mostly from OEM companies, original equipment manufacturers, and we build equipment according to their specifications. Our niche is that we have relatively large machining equipment that maybe equipment manufacturer couldn't really afford to have on their own. So we do it because we do it for so many different manufacturers, if that makes sense.
So we made it through the recession, kinda. How did the recession impact your business?
Well, I was scared to death. I've got my circulation back. We were really frightened when that happened. We had lots of orders canceled right away. We had our best year ever prior to the Depression, and I was forced to lay off a number of people that put a pretty big hole in our population. But we did make money that year. We haven't lost money in any year, and now we've come back to where we were before the recession.
So you didn't lose any money. What's been the key to your success?
We're pretty diligent about managing costs and keeping on top of the day-to-day work. We're very focused on costs, managing costs.
One of the things you're proud of is your workforce here. Can you tell me about the workforce you have here?
Well, the workforce is one of our larger challenges. Our country doesn't produce enough skilled machinists, the kind of people that we need. Most of our workforce, the majority, are from overseas, primarily from Russia, Moldova, and just the Far East. And what we've done to add to our workforce is to hire kids who we think have some potential, and they're smart, and they're motivated, and they want to succeed, and we find some good ones, and we train them from the ground up.
Oh. What would you like to see done to help you guys with that process? Is there a program you'd like to see started, or schools do something? What can be done to help you?
That's a good question. We could talk all day about that. I don't have any single answer. My contention is that we focus a lot of attention on technical stuff in our country, on programming, on video games, and that kind of stuff. We focus very little attention, in my opinion, on basic industry and industrial skills that we need.
Okay. So besides the labor, what are some of the other obstacles you faced as an industrial company in the South Sound?
You know, I guess I can't think of any particular obstacles. It's a pretty good environment that we're in the Kent area. It's
changing taxes or anything hasn't affected you?
Not too much. No, I think, you know, I don't mind paying my fair share of taxes. We need taxes to make infrastructure, and when we make infrastructure for our country, that provides work for us, so that's a good thing.
Okay. Moving forward, what are we going to see from Machine and Fabrication in the next few years?
Hopefully we'll still be in business. I guess that's number one. We have grown the last 7 years. We've doubled our size in spite of the recession. And I would expect in the next 7 years we'll come close to doubling again if we just keep working hard at it. And we're pretty diligent about it. We're making investments every year in new equipment and in people, and we're dedicated to growing. We're not planning to be a static operation.
Thank you for joining us today, Martin. Now let's go check in with your sales manager.
Very good. Thanks, Bree.
Mike Luptak, who is the sales manager, has joined me. Mike, tell me, what makes this facility so unique?
Well, at first glance, Brianne, you'd think that it's the scale of our machines and the size of the parts we do, but I think what really makes us unique is the partnerships we form with our customers and our responsiveness to their needs.
Okay, tell me about the customers you serve and the parts you make. Do you make a lot of one part or one part? How do you do it?
Well, we have a pretty diverse customer base. Primarily, we work with the heavy construction industry, the pile driving industry, but we also do work for the crash test equipment for the auto industry, for the steel industry, for palletized material moving. So we have a pretty diverse customer base.
So in the parts you make, you said you have a catalog of 3,000 to 4,000 different parts?
Yes, and many times we only make them once.
Okay. So what do people do here and right behind us? How do they use these machines?
Well, this is our milling shop. So we've got horizontal boring mills, bridge mills, typically larger scale machines, a capacity of up to 160 inches on the larger machines.
And as we've heard, you have a pretty skilled workforce and it takes pretty skilled people to use these? We've
been very fortunate to have a long-serving, dedicated workforce. Some of our employees have been here 15 years plus, and we've got hundreds of years of experience in our workforce. Very fortunate.
So you have a diverse catalog of customers. Where do you see the future going with what parts you want to be selling or what clients you want to get in with?
Well, I think manufacturing in general in Puget Sound has been very strong. As Boeing rises, so does all boats rise with Boeing. But I think we'll tend to stick with some of the smaller manufacturers, a lot of OEM companies that will help them make their products.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us today. Now we're going to move to Sumner, where Associate Editor Holly Smith-Peterson is with Torklift International. Holly?
This is Jay Taylor, General Manager of Torklift International. Jay, this company started in 1976, a one-man shop in Kent. Can you tell us, just in a nutshell, how did it grow into an international company?
Well, it started off as a one-man operation in 1976 by the founder, John Kay. And John became notorious around the local area for building custom hitch platforms and truck camper accessories and RV accessories for folks that came in, had an idea and didn't know how to build it or not have the capability themselves. So he created that retail location and serviced the hitch needs of the whole community here in Kent and the Auburn Valley for many years on his own. Out of that, a little bit later, as the company grew and progressed and he developed more and more employees and the business started to grow a little bit, his son, Jack Kay, came into the operation, working for John and assisting in the retail location. And then in about 2003, they decided, you know, we get the same calls for the same products all the time. What would happen if we started making these products and getting exposure to outside areas all across the country to see what we could do?
So get out of the Puget Sound market.
Right, right. And with the internet coming along at the same time, it made it very easy to do that. Well, the company exploded. And so Jack created the division Torklift International, which today brings us to where we're at and the facility that you're in, and a completely different business segment now than the retail locations.
And I want to explain too for our viewers, the one-man shop, the retail store is still in Kent, then there's another store in Kent, and then this international is actually in Sumner.
Correct.
So what is the other shop in Kent?
The other is an RV service center and sales location that's also come into the Torklift fold now, which for Torklift International, that manufactures products that are sold all over the world to the RV aftermarket accessory market, has provided valuable resource to us from a research and development standpoint. Kind of gives us a direct line to the street as far as what the consumer's looking for, products that they need, that they think that would benefit their camping experience.
And with the recession, you had mentioned that even though a lot of distributors had dropped off, your business actually grew.
Yes, it was very, very interesting because at first almost 50% of the RV dealers across the country went away. Bankruptcy and folded up, lost all hope. But interestingly enough, what happened was about 6 to 7 months later, after the crush and things started to improve a little bit, many people started discovering that they weren't taking the long vacations to Hawaii and trips to Europe and those kind of things. And right, and going camping with the family made a lot of sense. From a cost standpoint, it was very easy. You could go away even on the weekends. And so the camping industry overall has just really boomed.
So initially people cut back on their recreational income, but then those that had it decided to switch the model.
Exactly.
So who are your customers now?
Well, we have 3,000 dealers around the world that actually spread our tentacles into Russia, Europe, Australia, Japan. Now we're going into South America and Mexico. But our two largest markets, of course, are Canada and the United States.
Okay. And then so you don't deal with the customer directly. You actually are with the dealerships?
Right. We sell strictly through our dealer network all around the world. And the reason being is because the dealer plays an instrumental role in being able to install a lot of our products. The dealer provides a connection to our end user, the consumer, who goes into that dealer and learns to depend on that dealer for chemical needs, service needs of their vehicles, of their towables, and the different things that they need. The Torklift product line is very, very unique in the sense that our products are geared towards niche markets. We kind of focus on things that nobody else does. The other thing that's invaluable about the Torklift product line is all of our product is lifetime warranty. So becoming a true partner with our dealers, you're only going to buy the Torklift product once. But the opportunity to forge that relationship between the consumer and our dealer network, that's where we can play a great role in enhancing that partnership.
What are some of your best-selling products, or your best-selling product?
Truly our truck camper tie-downs and turnbuckles. They're very, very unique. They're the #1 product in those categories in the RV segment today.
And is that just for the U.S. or for all over?
All over the world.
Okay. And then, so which markets have grown, or are you looking for growth with internationally?
Well, our hitch business, we make two very unique hitches. One is a heavy-duty towing platform called the Super Hitch, and that has a 17,000-pound towing capacity. The one up from that is called the Magnum that came out about 3 years ago, and that has a 20,000-pound capacity. Your trucks and RVs today are much heavier, and your truck towing capabilities are much greater now.
I guess geographically is what I meant. Which markets are growing? China, Russia, South America?
Australia is really booming. Right. Russia is just really starting to come about. A lot of discretionary income starting to come about in Russia. And there, as well as anywhere else in the world, people love to camp.
Well, I think you'd also mentioned that you have the big challenge of your business is seasonal. So how are you trying to amend that?
Well, we're developing more and more products now that can be sold directly to the OEMs that manufacture products, towables, trailers, truck campers, those kind of things in the RV industry, because they build all winter long to get ready for the summer season. Normally lead time on a new unit can be anywhere from 30 to 60 days. So that platform has come about and provided a good source for us to keep us busy 12 months out of the year, and also crossing over into the automotive.
All right. And one quality that you mentioned that your company has, American made. You said when the government says something, qualifies as American made, it might be sketchy, that might not be the truth. What's your definition?
Well, the government classifies that as any product that is assembled, more than 50% of the product is assembled in the United States, can be called made in the USA. We believe that made in the USA means actually manufactured in the USA.
So what percentage?
As you can see here, about 95% of the Torklift product line is all made right here in Sumner, Washington.
So for employees, what's your growth been like? How many do you have now?
Because we're a seasonal company up until this point, we can be from a low end of about 28 to 35, somewhere in that range, to a high end of 75 to 100.
And what in this day and age is your biggest challenge besides being seasonal?
Educating our dealer network. With 3,000 dealers across the world, around the world, and Torklift International, we're famous for coming out with 3 to 4 new products each and every year. It becomes a challenge to keep distributors, our sales force, and all of our dealer network up to speed as to new product development, how to sell it, how to best service their customer needs with those products.
And do you find that to work here in a warehouse like this, are enough people being trained, or is there a greater need?
It's a constant program. We work on that day in and day out, all the way from leadership training for our future leaders in all departments of Torklift International to
our dealer network and our sales force.
And finally, you are very passionate about what you do. What's your favorite part about your job?
Watching the growth of our people. We literally have people that have started here at this company as a janitor, for example, that are now in the upper management team of the company. And over my career, I've never experienced anything as fulfilling as that.
Jay Taylor, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Holly.
Back to you, Jeff.
And that wraps up our visit to the industrial South Sound. Our thanks to Jesse Engineering, Machine and Fabrication, and Torklift International for letting us bring our cameras into their businesses. Our appreciation also to Richard Aronson and Mobility Media Design for helping us tell these stories. We'll be back again next week with another episode of South Sound Business Report. Same time, same channel, and hope you'll be there too. Thank you.